Yeah, good afternoon. Well, I would firstly like to congratulate the founders of this campus, that is Mrs. Shruti, Mrs. Preeti, and Mrs. Nishanti. They have put in a tremendous effort, a magnificent campus, a brilliant achievement. It's a dream come true for them. And once you enter the campus, you are like in the midst of nature. Wonderful environment for the students to learn and get better during the days of their growth. And it's an amazing place where they can come, live their dreams, possibly learn their dreams and get going in a very big way. It's completely different and unique from all the other campuses which we see or put across. It's completely environmental friendly, and the temperature and atmosphere is always very cool and pleasant, something which is very conducive for the students who come here and would like to learn and get going with the schooling. And it's a fabulous way to start their career. Wishing the founders and the school the very best, and a big congratulations to all of them. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to Tapas Project Shaala. Today we are on day 3 and second session on day 3. So we've had so much learning in the past couple of days and look forward to the learning from this session and tomorrow's sessions as well. Absolutely excited to be here with the topic that we have on hand. A small anecdote to begin this session with. About 3 days ago, our learners were who are 3 and 4 year olds in our early years. They were having or they were playing the during their role play time. They were playing the role of the Japanese tea ceremony. They were doing the role play of the Japanese tea ceremony. This was part of their learning of the food cultures across the world. Now, you have to remember these are 3 and 4 year olds, but I was absolutely delighted to see how they were able to handle the teapot, carefully pour out the tea, look at how they're managing themselves, and take care of their own selves while picking up the tree and drinking it. The respect, the resilience that was required for just the Japanese tea ceremony was just fantastic. Now, this connected them to how we drink tea in India itself. And this kind of learning helped them to understand the culture at their own home. So we've been going on a journey across the world with our 3 and 4 year olds. And it has been fabulous to see how they are responding and reflecting about, oh, this is what this country does and this is what we do at home. So the learning about what happens at our own homes has been amplified with the learning that they are having about the rest of the world. So it gives me great pleasure to bring on somebody who understands learning from a global context, and great joy to bring on Dr. Helen Wright. Dr. Helen, a warm welcome to Tapas Project Shaala.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm joining you from Edinburgh in Scotland.
And I want to let the viewers know that we met, Dr. Helen and I met in a beautiful mountain town called Hakuba in Japan, and we exchanged notes and we had so many wonderful conversations that we just had to get Dr. Helen onto this conference. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Helen to all the viewers here. Dr. Helen Wright is a globally recognized leadership coach, consultant, and education advisor. A former school principal in the UK and Australia, she now works closely with schools, boards, and leaders worldwide, coaching them to create purposeful, value led impact across diverse contexts. She worked as an associate at LSE Education, supporting leaders and international leadership recruitment, chairs a number of education related boards across the world, including Hong Kong. Dr. Helen, a warm welcome to you. And we are just excited to hear your views about what education is looking across the world and what does it mean to be a global citizen. The stage is now yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm delighted to be here, delighted to be able to share some thoughts. And this is one of those topics where I could actually literally speak about it for days. Okay, days. So I had to find a way to kind of put everything together into a short, just a set of few ideas. And I'm looking forward to our conversation about it and questions that people have, because I think that that's where you get the true interconnection. But I thought it would also be useful to start by just really focusing in on what do children really need to become global citizens. We kind of use this term global citizens. Loads of schools talk about global citizens. They say global citizen, we develop global citizens, etc. But what does that really mean? So I've done a lot of work on that over the past few years, written a couple of books which we'll talk about in a second. But really, I thought it comes down to two things: roots and roots. Okay, I was particularly pleased with myself actually when I thought that out. And then I thought, actually, shame I'm not American. Then we could have roots and routes, and I could distinguish them. We're going to have roots with two O's and roots with an OU. And the roots, it very much is about children knowing themselves. Actually, that where are they rooted? But they also need to have these these opportunities, sometimes physical opportunities, sometimes thinking opportunities. I love that anecdote of the children understanding, starting to think of where where Japan is, what happens in different cultures, those different routes out. So this image that created, it's got this idea of the roots and the roots. And the thing is, with each of those, you need both. Because if you don't have roots, then you're sort of flying around like a reed in the wind, and children are kind of like, where do I go? What do I do? What's the purpose of my life? But if you don't have the roots at the top, if you don't have those, then people can become stuck, they can feel unfulfilled. And the point is that what we're trying to do is develop both of those in school. And that's why so much of what I'm going to be saying is completely, it really doesn't matter. It matters to some degree, well, people get grades and so on, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is the child and the development of the child. So that's why I just wanted to talk about this just for a few minutes. So remember that image, the roots and the roots. Yeah, this is what we're looking for. So with that in mind, if I just go to the next slide, then we've got this sense of wanting to people belonging everywhere. It's like, where do we want? We want our children to feel as though they can belong in everywhere. Now, this came about for me from it was very powerful, the experience I had, which was about 10 years ago, when I was actually in Edinburgh and I was doing lots of global work. So I was around all over the world. And so I thought, actually, what I also need to do is volunteer at my local school. So I'd been a school principal before that for 13 years. I was just starting to work. I was doing this work with principals, etc., and boards around the world. But I thought, it's really important for me to give back locally. So I went to my local school. I didn't quite sort of rock up and say, here I am, but it's almost a bit like that. And I came in and I did lots of interview practice for people, whether they're applying for jobs, universities, and so on. And what I began to realize very soon was that these were amazing children. Every child is amazing. But because of what they'd heard around them, because of the words that they were hearing, the messages they were hearing, they were actually becoming restricted. They felt as though they couldn't go to other places. Like, they were in Scotland and they felt that really going to Glasgow in Scotland was like too much of a step for them, and they'd rather stay in Edinburgh. And actually I was thinking, we've not got this right. So it was a result of that that I wrote two books. One, Powerful Schools, because I realized that social mobility is so interconnected with global mobility. I actually believe that global mobility is a subsection of social mobility, because if our children are able to feel comfortable and confident dealing with people in different cultures, then they have more choices in life. And social mobility is all about choices. It's not about you have to work to get to a certain grade in school, and that's the only way you can go on to do something, because as we all know, and I say in my book, the system is set up so that not everyone will succeed. We do not allow every child to receive an A in an exam, because then we think the exam is too easy. So this is not about that. This is about children feeling the confidence to be able to understand what's going on in different places. And there's a beautiful scale which I came across in my research for this, which is the Milton J. Bennett scale of intercultural sensitivity. And this shows how we start off when we just think our culture is the only culture. Then we start to become aware of other cultures, but actually we don't think they're any good. Then we realize there are other cultures, and oh, they are quite good actually. They're just a bit different. Then we start to embrace, and then we coexist, which is, you know, a lovely scale. And do you know what's really important about it? It's a one-way scale. It's a one-way scale, because once you know something, you can't unknow it. So this thing about our children and them growing and understanding the world and having opportunities to see all sorts of things, then it's like that they can't unsee it, they can't unlearn it. So that's what took me onto my book, The Globally Competent School and Manual, which was designed for schools. Because I was getting so frustrated with schools when they were saying, "Oh yes, we raise global citizens." And then you look at it and they just have like International Day and do a couple of other things. I came up with a model which the idea is that schools can just use it and develop it obviously for themselves. But this was about, you know, level one is when you do have that global awareness. So you are seeing things. Then level two, you're starting to have these experiences. So going to places, having people in, connecting with technology now. We can do so much. I mean, look at us now. You know, I'm in Edinburgh, you know, and here we are, we're connecting. It's just like we're there. It's amazing. And then this moving to this third level, which is about the co-development of curriculum, the interweaving of community, that passion that there is there. So all of these things are absolutely possible. And where they start, and the point that I made in this, where they start is with a really honest audit. And an audit, not just what the school does, but what the child experiences. So, as I say, I could speak about that for a long time. I really believe passionately about that, and this is something that schools can be taking forward. What are the messages that we're giving children about the fact that they are human, that they are part of the world, that they really are global citizens? We need to be pinning those down, helping them, amplifying them. So that's the first thing. So that, if you think those are kind of the roots out, they're underpinned by the roots and where we're rooted. Now this, I think, is a really interesting area, because we saw in COVID a lot of discussion around identity and national borders. Your borders were closed, and that's made us think a lot about identity. What's the identity of my child? What's my identity? Where do I come from? Where do I need to come from in order to be able to access the world? What are my roots? And and this is where I think that shift that we need to make is that all of those things matter, but what matters above all is the sense of self-awareness, self-understanding, the values that a child has at the heart. And that I have seen time and time again in my coaching. So I coach leaders literally all over the world, and I find that I know the best leaders are the most grounded leaders. They're the people who understand themselves, who know that they're not perfect. They know that they're a bit different. They know they struggle with some things. You know, all of those. It's just what they've come to an understanding of who they are. And do you know what I find so amazing? We must never ever forget this. There is only one of each of you. Literally. There is only one of each. 8 billion people on the planet, and there is only one of each of you. And that's for each of our children. There's only one of them. We need to enable them to become the best of themselves and to understand their collective responsibility as global citizens. But if they can become them and understand who they are, they've got those strong roots, and that then takes them into those roots beyond, because then they can play their part. Where so much of education has gone wrong, I believe, over the years, is that we have tried to make all children the same. And if they've been particularly good at something, but we've said that, well, they're not achieving so well in something, we stop them doing what they're good at and we make them do some more of that. And what you end up there is sort of universal mediocrity, actually. That's what you end up with. And what the shift that we can make and that great schools are making is in enabling children to learn who they are and to find out where that's come from family, from community, from the experiences they've had, from experiences from generations before, which have come through them. All of that ties them into who they are, and they each have a unique story. So helping them understand that, helping them appreciate that, helping them value that is so important. They're not turning into something or someone who they're not. We're helping them become who they are in this. And so that's where these connect. What is it we can actually do in school and in families to enable both of these? Because they both have to develop at the same time. It can be easy to say, oh, let's a child let's let the child become aware of who they are, and then we can develop the external routes. Or we can go, oh no, let's like go for all of these ideas and so on, but then we neglect who they are. Really, it's layered, one on top of the other. You extend a bit of the roots and a bit of the roots. And in fact, that's exactly what happens in a tree. That's a tree. So for a tree to grow, it doesn't just have loads of branches, because without the roots, it'll fall over. It has lots of roots, and it doesn't have the branches, it doesn't grow those, it doesn't get I'm trying to remember my biology here, but it doesn't get the sunlight coming in and turns it into the chlorophyll and or uses the chlorophyll, and it does all sorts of funny things and it creates more of the tree. So it doesn't work unless we have both at the same time. So what we're the kind of thoughts that I think we need to be discussing and thinking about are, how do we ensure that our children have the roots, this self-awareness, the values, that they're able to articulate those. Yes, the stories, the rituals that are about the culture of their grandparents, but also other cultures, so they can learn and appreciate the world. How can we do that? And above all, how can we help children explore and develop their own passions? Now, we can't give a child a passion. A child has to develop it, but we can give children opportunities to explore and understand what their passions are. So those are things which I think are really, really important. And in terms of the roots, yes, we can say we can take them to places, they can see other things. Actually, what really matters there is that noticing, encouraging the curiosity in them, encouraging them to connect with others, to value others, and you can see how that's interwoven with the roots. So I feel as though I'm being very expressive here, and we have our roots and we have our roots, but that I just wanted to give that to you as an image. It's actually, this is a world premiere of this thinking, because I haven't captured it in this way before. And that's the beauty of being able to come along and talk to people, because in the thinking, the preparation, and I knew I only had a short space of time, what could I pull together? What is this? So it is my gift to you. Our children are their roots. And the question for each of our children, whether it's a parent or a teacher or a policymaker, is, what does this child need more of now? So, Preeti, over to you. I'm so looking forward to our conversation around this.
Wow, that was fantastic, Dr. Helen. Thank you so much for hold on. Oh, there we go. That was fantastic to think about roots, and it is really clever. Absolutely, it's quite clever. I have to say, maybe we can expect a book on this sometime. Maybe you're able to
Oh,
connect.
maybe, but maybe this is just something I can share with you, and I put it into something else. But the thing is, people often say, "You, why don't you write another book?" There's so much to write about in the world, and what I also have realised is that I like doing things, I like sharing, I like catalyzing other people.
Hmm,
That's one of my passions. And when you realise things about yourself, if you go with that, then you're going to do the best work possible. We're all on a journey of exploration, and I think when we realize that in ourselves, then we're really good role models for children, because they're on a
hmm,
journey of exploration, and we want to help them, and we want them to we take risks, and we do things, and then we think, oh, maybe I should have done that or that. But no, I'm a great believer. Do you know, one of my sayings with my coachees is, you cannot make a wrong decision. Okay, I'll explain why. Because nobody goes into a decision that they've got to
hmm.
make going, hmm, let me make the wrong decision here. I'm going to make the wrong decision. Nobody does that. You go in with all the evidence you have to hand, and you seek to make the right decision. Now, obviously, the more aware you are of your values and your identity and your roots, and the more aware you are of the context, the better a decision you're likely to make. That is true. So that's
Absolutely.
what we're trying to do with children, I think, as well. But we also need to do it as adults. So,
And that's beautiful. I think the last couple of days, every speaker has somewhere touched upon exactly what you mentioned, that you need to know yourself before you're able to understand the rest of the world. So, starting from the first speaker who spoke about something called as the Swabhava, which is a part of the Indian knowledge systems, which is all about understanding self and your association with the rest of the world. To the session just before you today, the speaker brought about some understanding of what are the types of toys that young children should have, which connects them to their roots. So really what you've done is summed up everything and said this is where we should be. So I think that's brilliant. One of the things that we do at Tapas is we think of learners as not being a clean slate or being an empty vessel. I think that notion that children are not somebody today is so flawed. And so
mm,
we, one of the cornerstones of tapas uh, is astitva. We call it astitva, which is a Sanskrit word for knowing and understanding that a learner is somebody at present. They have thoughts, they have opinions, they have choices, they want to be able to make those choices. And so
mhm,
we want them to be rooted in their own astitva, to be
yeah,
able to navigate the world of education.
mm,
So I want to capture your thoughts on adults who have grown up not knowing who they are. How do they lead in that kind of a scenario?
if people grow up not knowing who they are, I think it's really difficult to be a leader. I really do, because it's how, if you don't know yourself, how can you even imagine the impact you might have on others? So one of the things I
Hmm.
do in my coaching with leaders is I use a number of different tools, but one of them is a psychometric test, and it you come up with a little graph at the end. It's based on the disc profile. It's about your work behaviors, and if you imagine a graph that's got sort of four lines down, a line in the middle, and each line has got a dot on it. So each of the four ones got a dot about which kind of stays where you are, and then it all translates that magically into text and does all sorts of things there. But one of the most powerful things with that is that I say to people, you think, yeah, your graph looks a bit like this, say, or something, but we all feel that we sit in the middle. We all
Hmm.
feel that we kind of know and that we are. But different people will see you differently depending on where they're coming from. And this is this beautiful, this complexity of interaction. And that has to start with a humility around ourselves and a pride in ourselves that we are the only one of us, but a humility and a responsibility that comes with that, to be the best of who we can be, but really to explore and to say, some things I'm going to lean into more, some things I'm going to lean into less. Now, if you have leaders who aren't conscious of that, then it's like a steamroller or a bull
Mm.
in a china shop, because they're kind of rushing through. They just are, and they can't conceive of the fact that other people might see them differently. And I think, I hope that we've gone, in most parts of the world, maybe, that at some levels we've gone beyond that. I'm not sure we've gone beyond that in terms of some of our global political leaders. I'm not sure that we're there at all. But I think that sense of understanding of self, it's just so obvious that we have to embrace that. And if we see that people don't have that, and other leaders don't have that, I think it's our responsibility to keep up the language around that. It's up to us to keep making sure we are the adults in the room, and we keep saying that, not just to
Mm.
children, but to other adults. I think we're all in this
Absolutely.
together as a human race.
Yes, and I think we often forget that, and
Yeah.
then we are struggling with accepting each other, and that could be a big challenge. This was, in fact, one of the conversations that we had, and again, sharing a small anecdote, what happened in Tapas, we were discussing about why we should have clubs instead of houses, because houses you're just dropped into, you don't really know why you're a part of the house, but in a club you have some responsibilities, etc. So we
Mm.
were having these conversations, and one of the learners came up and said, "Isn't this exactly how countries are? Like, we don't know when the borders were made. We weren't part of that
Ah,
decision. It impacts us very differently. We are expected to show our loyalty, and then we don't know why." And that was such
mm.
a beautiful observation from him. It showed that he was really thinking about himself and his place in this big world, right? And I think we need to make more space for children to be reflective about these, and then from there navigate the world.
I completely agree, and that's one of the issues that we've got to be really careful about in terms of national curricula,
Mm,
and we've got to be very careful about that, because again, people put things into a national curriculum because they believe that it's the right thing for children and to support children. And there's something about a national curriculum, or any kind of curriculum, which is about equality of access. Everybody
mm,
being able to have this and that is on it, and fair enough. But the trouble is, we don't have infinite time. A child
mm,
does not have infinite time. None of us does. I mean, it's a bit of a pain, really, because I mean, it'd be quite nice if we could, have loads and loads of time. Well, I've got my reflection time, and I can do all of this. And I can have learnt a completely new language before breakfast. It's like that doesn't work like that. And one of the troubles is that if we are constantly scheduling children, we are not giving them time to reflect and grow and develop. I remember going through this, 'cause I've got 3 children. I remember my eldest is now 22. And I remember when he was little, and I remember sitting in the sitting room, we had this toy box, and he was just playing with it and picking things out. And I was fascinated, and I just watched, and I just let him do it. And he didn't need to be scheduled. He didn't need to um, have like a something progression with stars, and how he's got Duncan do that more and that more and that more. He was exploring and growing and picking things out and so on. And do you know what? Now he's studying for a PhD in material science, and it's his passion and his interest that's taken him there. And I just think we have to let our children be. It can be very hard from a parental perspective and from a teacher perspective, because we've got so much that we desire for our children. We have a strong biological desires. We need to keep them safe. They need to, that's deeply ingrained. And if we
mm,
didn't have that, well, human race would have died out a long time ago. Yeah, so we know we want to keep our children safe. But sometimes our interpretation of what that means to keep them safe is actually counter to what is actually needed to keep them safe. So if I were, it I don't know, suppose I were a squirrel and I was looking after my
mm,
baby squirrels, and I kept my baby squirrels for the whole of their life inside the tree trunk, and I kept them there, and I kept them, yes, yeah, and I didn't let them out, and I made sure I fed them. Then when I disappeared from this world, they wouldn't be able to cope. These poor baby squirrels were picked up by a fox somewhere, and so it's not, it's like we have to let our children grow, take risks, develop, and we need them to develop the cognitive abilities, the kind of the cause and consequence of things. They need to be able to figure those things out. We can't actually do that for them. We can't.
Yeah.
We can help them by giving them, bringing them to a great school like Tapas. We can help them by doing that, but we can't do it for them. Therefore, we need to be very alert as educators, as parents, just even as members of the community, to
Mm.
what the child is showing and developing about themselves. And then we can find potential opportunities that we might put in their way for them to explore. They decide that that's not the right thing and move somewhere else. Okay. But we do have this fixed view of children ought to do. And
Mm.
it's quite challenging to get the right balance in that. Um, Stretching them, but not punishing them for that. Mm.
Yeah, and it's a
Mm.
fine balance. I think we're all trying to
Yeah.
find that fine balance between the two.
Mm.
And I like what you said, that we are protecting our children too much
Mm.
now, and that doesn't allow them to fail. And I think that
Mm.
word, which is failure, is such a stigma to leaders
Yes.
today. And whole systems are built around not letting children fail.
Yes.
What has been your experience with some schools who built great processes which allow students to fail and learn from that?
So this comes down to the challenge and the stigma that comes with the word fail to begin with, because you're right, it is hard. And people, I do come across a lot of schools where they say we allow children to fail, but they don't really. It's like, oh, they build this in and say we allow our children to fail to try and experiment, but still at the end of the week they'll have a really good presentation of something that they've done, and we've got to make sure that they do that, and it'll be up there. And so they were really allowing them to fail, then the presentation might not be there, the showcase might not be there at the end of the week. So
Yeah.
so we have to be careful like that. This is where I come to this point of what school, when schools do this really well, I think they do it really well in a project-based learning approach. So I think about the school, you mentioned school in Hong Kong, and I sit on the board of a school in Hong Kong, the Dalton School, which is growing still. So it's going to be K to 12, it's already K to 8, and K to 9 next year, and so on. And project-based learning is interwoven into this. And this is about experimentation, about finding things out, about not being able to make the wrong decision, but then realizing at a later point you could make a better decision.
Mm.
And that, when I see that space happening in schools like that, I can see the difference, and absolutely see
Mm.
the difference. You can look at the children and see how much more mature they are, how much more responsible they are, because this isn't done in isolation. It's done with strong values around, strong family values, strong values. I can't think of a single school really which doesn't have strong values. We just need to make sure we emphasize them. So so that is what I have seen working. Now you see it in lots of schools popping up in different places, because this actually goes back 100 years ago. Goes back
Mm.
100 years ago to the great thinkers of the early 20th century, when you had John Dewey, you had Maria Montessori, you had thinkers who'd realized already that the mass education which was coming into play, which was great for everybody to have opportunity, but that mass education was actually preparing people for an industrial society and not
Mm.
for a person-centered human-centered society, which was already the case. It was already happening. This happens at different stages in different cultures, but essentially it's a move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the more of self-actualization. So they people had already spotted that, and
Mm.
we need I think we need to return to some of those thoughts. I think that's what the the Dalton plan, the Dalton School, it came from very much the same time. Helen Parkhurst was looking at space within the curriculum so that children could explore, problems, follow their passions, um, really learn in lots of ways, all of that. So that's what I see, and I see it. I mean, it's tough getting this into the psyche of societies. So I chair a charity in Edinburgh, which is connected a little bit with what I was saying about my learning about boundaries and blockers. And the charity I chair is called Light Up Learning. And what we do there is work with really disadvantaged young children. Well, they experience disadvantage. There may be family reasons, there may be addiction in the family, maybe all sorts of things that are happening in the family, and they often aren't in school. So, but what we do is have a process of working with a learning guide, and there you're igniting in them a love of learning
Mm,
through learning about what they love. And when
mm,
we know that we're learners, the world opens up. So that again, that those roots of learning, appreciating that you're a learner. Because if you're being told in school all the time that you're no good because you're not getting this grade or that grade, you're not developing that. You're stunted in your growth. And
mm,
then it's like, well, where is my curiosity going to take me now? Where is
mm.
that going to go? So, oh, it's like I said, I could speak for hours and hours and hours, and I feel so putting all of this into a short space of time. But hopefully, it's useful. Yes.
It is, absolutely it is. And I think it's great to hear about the Dalton School, because as a project-based learning school as well, I think we see what you just mentioned. We are able to bring in a lot more capacity to think and differentiate and evaluate and think about why I'm thinking something in that way. So the metacognition is possible because we are doing project based learning, and this is probably
Yes,
what you've experienced. Like
exactly.
currently our fourth and fifth graders are on a year long theme of experiencing fashion. Their
Oh,
first 3 months, they looked at fashion as the indicator of culture and the indicator of society across ages. So they learned about the Victorian era, the Renaissance, and the different time periods in history, and how fashion was a reflection of the mindset during that era. And I
yes.
was just mind blown to see how they understood why, say, women didn't have rights, and that reflected in the kind of
Mm,
clothes that they wore.
mm,
And they made those connections themselves, and I was just
mm,
mind blown with what
mm.
potential this project could have.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think I love what you mentioned about the roots, and through this
Yeah.
exploration they learned about the fashion in India.
Yes. Yes.
He said, now we know, like, this is exactly what where society is and where how we are
Yes.
evolving and our role in it. I mean, it's just mind blowing, right? It could
Yes.
the
Yeah.
potential applications of this.
Yeah. And I think there's something else in there as well, is that when we look into history or we look into our roots, sometimes we'll come across things that are uncomfortable. And we have to, I think, not protect children too much from that. We don't
Mm,
want to sanitize their experience. And don't mean that we're exposing them to everything at the same time. We've got to be careful about that. But it is through discomfort that
mm,
that we're able to identify our values and our ethical boundaries and parameters much more effectively by asking the question of, like, why is this the case, why is this not the case. I remember some time ago, well, I remember exactly when it was, because my youngest was a child, and there was I was talking a bit about women coming back to work after having children, which you'd think wouldn't be an issue,
mm,
but anyway, it certainly was. And I said, I know, so I was on a radio show talking about this, and I said to my older daughter, who would have, so she'd only been about 4 or something at the time, and she said, "Oh, what were you doing? What were you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I was just on a radio show talking to some people about how women can choose more about what they want to do, and because I said you can be, as I said, you can be a leader and you can be a mother as well." And she looked at me,
mm,
she said, "Of course you can." It's like, it's one of these things that she, so I did have to talk a little bit more about kind of how, which was great, but then had to talk a
mm,
little bit more about how that's not always been the case. And
mm,
so, but to support that, I was so proud of her,
mm,
obviously. I was
absolutely.
so proud because that's what she's been surrounded by, that's what she's understood, and it was just brilliant to see that. I thought, actually, that discomfort in there, let's just use this as an opportunity to bring that in. So that's not always been the case. You will find some people who don't think like that actually, and we've got to kind of explore what that might look like. But again, it comes back to the point that I made briefly when I was talking earlier, that adult voices around children are really important. What we're
Mm,
saying, how we act, what we communicate, that matters. Children are very astute. They pick these things up very, very quickly. And we have that responsibility. They will grow. We're keeping them safe enough. We're stretching them. We're there to pick them up if they come across something which they really struggle with as
mm.
well. We're not just abandoning them, but our voice is really significant, really significant. Mm.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of segues into one of the questions which I wanted to ask you is, as leaders, we are expected to play all these big roles. You have to be the best version of yourself. You have to carry yourself in a manner that you're setting the right example. There's a lot of, I think, burden placed on the leader's shoulder. Like, is this still okay to show vulnerability? Like, are you
Uh,
always supposed to
yes.
have this facade?
Yes. Well, if we always have that facade, then A, we know it's not true,
Mm,
because there's a real life person behind that. But also, I think we're feeding children the sense that there's something unattainable that they have to work towards. Now, I think that what we're really looking at, there are a number of different things in this one. I always say that everyone is a leader. Like a child is a leader, a teacher's a leader, everyone's a leader. We all have responsibility, and
mm,
we have a part to play in the
mm,
ecosystems in which we're working. So an understanding of what that part is important. Sometimes there are rituals which we have to adopt in order to keep people safe.
mm,
And a ritual, a leader might adopt a ritual of being able to stand up in front of everybody, say, this is what we're going to do, and they say it calmly and straightforwardly, and that's a ritual. The leader
mm,
won't be able to do that unless they have had fed into them all the elements that are going to make that decision. The decision isn't theirs, the
mm,
ritual is theirs, and they're
mm,
fulfilling this ritual. And I think we should explore that more. It's like a dance that we play, and we all have a part to play in that, and each part is equally valuable. And the mantle of responsibility that comes with certain roles, etc., is something for us to take seriously, but it means that everybody is supporting us in that. A leader cannot be a good leader without everyone supporting them. A child is not going to be the best of themselves without everyone supporting them. So we've got to think about the roles we play. So vulnerability is sometimes we have a bit of a stigma attached to that, because sometimes you can say, well, vulnerability means I'm going to burst into tears and not be able to cope. Well, that's not a good thing to do if you're playing the ritual of I need to keep everybody reassured. On the other hand, if you are saying everything I do cannot be questioned, then we're
mm,
actually feeding a narrative which is unhelpful to everybody, and it breeds resentment and frustration and so on. So I think there's something here about humility. Again, it's the knowing of self, knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at. I know I'm not good at stacking the dishwasher, so I don't do that at home. We let other people do that. Yes, yeah. I do other things though, and but we negotiate and navigate around that. And I think that's know yourself, and it'll take you places.
beautiful. I think beautifully connected to your first slide. I think that is amazing. I couple of questions on the chat window which I'm going to put up. We often struggle to know when to step in and when to step out. How can we make that decision more wisely as parents?
Oh, yes, and there's no handbook for this, but the more you know your child, the easier that decision is. And sometimes when I was ahead, people would come to me because their child was having particular problems, quite serious problems sometimes. And they said, what can I do? What can I do? And I said, the one thing that parents can do above all is unconditional love. It's that
Mm,
unconditional love. And love we know comes with sometimes we have to challenge people, etc. So I think it's I regard it as a process It's a process of walking alongside your child, always, just like educators. We try to walk alongside children. Sometimes we have to say, come on this way. Sometimes we have to let them lead. And if there were an easy answer to that, we'd say it. But there is no easy answer because there is only the one child who is your child.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So as I say, we're all in this together. Yeah.
Yes. There's another question. There are
Mm,
kids across the globe whose childhoods have been split between two or more countries. How
mhm.
do we root them? Is there something we can learn from them?
Oh, there are loads of questions in there. The last question, if there's something we can learn from them, always. Always, always. We can always learn from our children. And there's that sense of pride, isn't there, as a parent, where you go, oh, look what I made. Look, look, look. But look, they're themselves. They're becoming just like we totally can learn. They can teach us huge amounts. Be open to that, and the world will be a better place, definitely. In terms of the rooting of them, this is where it's not all about geography, but it is about exposure, and it is about self-understanding, and also the pride, the understanding, the love that they have for them being special. Each of
Mm,
them is special, that special mixture of experiences. That's their rootedness is inside. That's the one of the strong messages I really want to communicate today, that our rootedness, we are internally rooted. So helping them understand themselves, helping them like themselves, helping them explore and be curious about themselves, absolutely. And then the roots will the roots out will come from that, because then you're
mm,
encouraging and you're stretching, and it comes from this strong center, which as parents and as educators we can bring to children, which is that you are worthy and you
mm,
have a place in this world, and
absolutely.
we're all going to help you do it. Comes with some
Yes,
challenges. You've got responsibility to take on it. As a member of the human race, we've all got responsibility. You can do it.
absolutely. And we have time for this last question. Sugandha,
Yes,
as you briefly mentioned about social mobility connected to global mobility, intercultural
yes.
sensitivity, Milton Bennett, could you elaborate a little bit more about how this can be done at schools?
Yes. So this is about really looking at the different tiers of what schools can do. That's when I was thinking about that, that that's in the book, the globally competent school, that one, when I was writing about how it's done in practice. And schools must start with an audit. Start with an
Mm,
audit of the experiences of the child, because you want to make sure that as the child goes through school, that child has lots of opportunities and touch points to expand their understanding of cultures and appreciation of cultures. And however that looks, it looked differently in different schools. However that looks, the important thing is it's comprehensive, and it's not just what the school does, like we have these trips, we have these. It's what
mm,
does the child experience, because children will opt into some opportunities at others. Just because you offer Tai Chi doesn't mean that all children will have experience of Tai Chi as a club. So it's like, what's the experience of the child? So I think in practical terms, start with the audit based on our child, all children.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think we're at the end of the time that we have together,
That went quickly.
unfortunately. That went very quickly, and a lot of great conversation, a lot of great learning that has come from this
Mm,
conversation. Dr. Helen, it has been a joy to have this conversation with you. I think
and
you were able to explain to us, tell us, guide us on how we need to be rooted and have our roots open. So
mm,
this has been a
mm.
pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, the audience, for being part of today's session as well. Uh, just want to flag off that tomorrow we are having the Project Shala sessions in the morning. This is something that you need to remember. The last 3 days, including today, has been in the evenings, but tomorrow the timings are a little different. I recommend that you hit on the bell icon so that you are notified whenever we go live and you're able to join in and learn more. A little bit about tomorrow's session. The finale of the Tapas Project Shala is a panel discussion where the learners are going to moderate. school owners to homeschool parents, and a beautiful conversation that we are going to have. So I invite you all to join in for tomorrow's two sessions that we have. I promise it will be a fantastic Sunday morning. This has been extremely enriching. Dr. Helen has been a great speaker. Her enthusiasm is very effective. It's so contagious that all of us are affected by it. So thank you once again, Dr. Helen. And if there are any questions we receive after this, we'll send those across to you and we can answer those back. Yeah. And if
Perfect.
there are any resources that Dr. Helen has to share with all of you, we will make sure that that reaches you as well. So big thank you to everybody and have a great evening. Thank you, Dr. Helen.
Thank you.